What if it truly was a living, breathing, glowing, flying beast? What would it be? What kind of evolutionary history would it have? What does it eat? Who eats it? You'd think I'd just leave you without anything fun to think about? A group of paleontologists and scientists worked together to publish All Yesterday's Unique and Speculative Views of Dinosaurs and Other Prehistoric Animals in 2012. This volume provided a springboard for the diversification in ideas on how extinct animals may have looked and acted like. It started the new paleoart craze and is probably the reason for thinking about the muscle, fat, and other soft tissues of the dinosaurs as analytically as many of us do today. One of the many results of this publication was Cryptozoologicon. This was a similar book but about cryptids. In it, John Conway, Darren Naish, and C.M. Kozman created an exercise in speculative biology by theorizing hypothetical animals to life in much the same way as many cryptozoologists do, but without taking it seriously. As Dr. Darren Naish states in the book, what cryptozoologists need to appreciate is that the cryptids they endorse are speculative entities, and proposals about the evolution, biology, and ecology of such hypothesized creatures are essentially exercises in speculative fiction. To that end, I will do so here with the Van Meter Visitor. Try to fit it into the fossil record and biodiversity of where it was sighted to theorize a speculative entity that we now know is more hoax than truth. There is a large network of tunnels, caverns, and caves throughout the subterranean lands of Van Meter, Iowa. Sometime in the mid to late 1800s, people mined these areas and accidentally broke into some of these caves. Many have openings in other parts of the state and throughout other states. A species of large bat lives here, eating anything that has been unlucky enough to fall inside the caves, as well as other species of animals that have made a living inside the caves, like fish, crawfish, insects, and rodents. Its scientific name is Luminoptrix lucitops, or bright-headed lightwing, due to the animal's penchant for bioluminescence. What the people of 1903 Van Meter thought of as prehistoric, extraterrestrial, or hellish in nature was very much a naturally occurring species that had evolved alongside every other organism on the planet for millions of years. Luminoptrix is a genus belonging to the Pteropodidae group, which is the flying fox group of living bats. Very much unlike the rest of the flying foxes, Luminoptrix has adapted to a life in the caves, reaching a wingspan of 1.4 meters and body weight of 1.3 kilograms. It has developed much better night vision and echolocation convergent with many smaller insect-munching bats. You see, bats were traditionally evolutionary divided into two groups, the Megachiroptera and the Microchiroptera, the megabats and microbats respectively. The megabats are usually fruit-eating, large-bodied bats that are active during the day and lack echolocation, while the microbats are the exact opposite, generally small, echolocating, nocturnal predators. More recent studies have found this organization to be inadequate and unnatural. It turns out that the megabat group, Pteropodidae, is actually deeply nested within a lineage of microbats, going all the way back to the Eocene epoch. This means there is no real distinction between micro and megabats, and all living groups of bats independently evolved different adaptations over time to cope with whatever environments they found themselves in, and with no adherence to any black and white genetic distinctions between frugivorous daytime bats and nighttime echolocating bug-eating bats. So, now the bat family, Chiroptera, is divided into two new suborders, the comedically named Enterochiroptera and Yangochiroptera. Yangochiroptera has most of the traditional microbat families, while Enterochiroptera contains the traditional megabat families and a few microbat families. So, for all intents and purposes, Luminoptrix is a megabat adapted to the lifestyles of a microbat, which is why it is not the absolute largest species, but has retained its relatively large size due to living in a much larger cave system than most subterranean species. Its skin is a pasty whitish-orange color, and its body and arms are covered in a very short pelage of strawberry blonde to cinnamon fur. Its eyes are degenerative and small. Though they retain the ability to see, they have poor eyesight. Instead, they use their ears and nose to sense their surroundings. Atop its head is a bioluminescent organ that is vaguely horn-shaped, but entirely made of soft tissue, and it glows a bright yellow color for a multitude of uses, like communication with other individuals of the same species, and to attract prey within the caverns it calls home. It preys on anything it can get a hold of in its subterranean home, be it cavefish, crayfish, smaller, more recent bat colonizers, or the cockroaches that feed on its dung, washing it all down with rainwater that collects in puddles on the cave floors. There are entrances to the caves in some areas which have allowed Luminoptrix to collect food from outside their normal environment. They don't often come out of the cave systems, as they are more adapted for the regulated climate of the caves, but will venture out at night from time to time. This is when they might fall prey to wolves, cougars, bobcats, or bears. That glowing horn, originally adapted for communication, is co-opted in defense against predators. Both males and females have bioluminescent organs on their heads, but the male's crests are much larger, and they use them to pulsate many more patterns and almost Morse code-like messages. Males put on an incredible display to woo the larger females, resulting in fierce competition between males during the breeding season, which is around fall. Once mated, the Van Meter visitors give birth to one pup at a time. The pup weighs about 12% of the mother's weight at birth and lives off its mother's milk for up to 6 months before being weaned and starting to fledge. Luminoptrix make strong bonds and are tentative parents. Mother and father pay close attention to their single offspring until it reaches sexual maturity at age 1 to 2. Unlike most megabats, and much more like some microbats, Luminoptrix usually walks around on the ground using its back legs and the claw on its wing. They hang upside down in the cave systems when sleeping and caring for its young, but will switch to the quadrupedal hopping gait while eating, drinking, or anything else it may need to do on the ground. The Luminoptrix population has decreased due to the presence of humans. Mining has resulted in dangerous leftover debris which leaches into the caves and poisons some of the water resources. The 2 individuals seen in 1903 may very well have been some of the few remaining, and it is entirely possible the species is currently extinct. Though smaller groups of them may still remain deeper within the caves, the only known entrance of which has been caved in with the aid of TNT. Some very brief and little-known reports of Luminoptrix-like animals near Van Meter, but also around Iowa, suggest there may have actually been a few small populations of these animals to survive that initial Van Meter incident, with some beginning to once again leave the confines of their cave systems. Who knows, perhaps this species will once again become part of the endemic fauna of the region. Although we do not know much more about the Luminoptrix, it is possible that reports of a pterosaur-like animal from South America may actually be a living relative to this cave-dwelling species, especially with the reports of bioluminescence. Only more evidence will tell us more about these unusual animals. What a fun mystery! Although the Luminoptrix is completely fictitious, I have tried to create something not too out of the ordinary. The actual descriptions sound a bit like a pterosaur, and many artists have recreated the creature in such a way. But of course, as I've gone over, there is literally no evidence the non-avian dinosaurs, pterosaurs, or other Cretaceous species other than those lineages still around today were able to survive past a couple thousand years after the K-pig extinction, which would make it virtually impossible for the Van Meter visitor to be a pterosaur, if it were actually real, which is still nearly impossible and impossible to prove. The inhabitants of Van Meter have embraced the crazy, kooky nature of the creature and the story, and many believe it to have been a real flesh and blood creature, while others believe it to be demonic in origin. It provides an interesting idea as to what might still be out there, even if not quite as exciting as a pteranodon with a laser horn on its head. There's a festival to celebrate the Van Meter visitor and many other cryptozoological and paranormal phenomenon, and although I cannot endorse the belief in the existence of something without verifiable evidence, I can approve of the desire for truth, so go check out the Van Meter Visitor Festival in Van Meter, Iowa, pretty much the end of September of each year. What do you think of the Van Meter visitor? What do you think it actually was? Was it just a hoax? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and leave the lowest effort comment you're capable of for that sweet algo juicing. Also make sure your account is not in restricted mode, otherwise you might not even be seeing my videos. I'll provide a detailed step-by-step instructions in the comment section below and the description. I'd now like to thank my patrons and channel members: Christoph Hubinger, Coleman Forestry, Greg Noneman, Iberospinus, Isaiah Garza, JD Trash, Gene Miller, Jim, Jimmy, Josh Infantine, Kevin McQuaid, Loa, Mao Love, Manon Gondreau, Marty Weiss, Michael Murphy, Monitor Man, Ragnar Viking, Ray, Rudy Redgrave, Staniforth Hopkins, Teeny Dragator, The Juku, and Urban Hermit. These fine folks got to see this video a week ahead of the rest of you, so if you want to be like them, I have exactly one $1 tier on Patreon that gets you a ton of perks the average viewer doesn't get. If you stuck around to the end, then thank you so much for watching, and let me know what other topics in the life and earth sciences I should cover next. I read those comments you goblins make, and sometimes I even reply wryly. But this has been Edge Science, so see you in the next video.